Welcome back to Amy, and I'm Amy Matthews, and I'm here today with Peyton Hogan
Hi.
and Justina Ashman.
Hi.
And we are meeting as always on beautiful Ghana land. It is winter, but it's still beautiful. It's freezing, but beautiful. And we're down by Karawura Parry. Well, I am by on Tantania, Adelaide, and we'd like to pay our respects to elders past and present and extend those respects to any First Nations people who are listening today. Now, we are incredibly lucky today to be able to interview Amy Andrews. We're talking about sex this month, and we're having a look at, I didn't bring the book in, but Monster Romance. So we're looking at Minotaur Milking Farm.
Yeah.
And we also have been talking about Catherine Angel's Tomorrow's Sex Will Be Good Again. And really just thinking all things sex. So last year it was smart. This year we're kind of thinking sex. We're getting a little bit more cultured about it. Um, and
What's
Amy,
next?
It's
yeah,
growth.
how rough can it get next time? Um, and Amy was one of the first people I thought of when we were thinking about interviewing someone to talk about sex, because I have seen her give so many keynotes that are really funny, but also really smart, talking about sex and romance and sex in literature. So for those of you, if you don't know Amy Andrews, she's written more than 90 novels, which actually, like, I am in awe of that. Like, I think I write reasonably quick and I could never keep up with
It's
Amy's.
wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So she's won multiple awards, including the Romance Writers of Australia Ruby Award. She's been up for the Reader Award. She has got more than 3 million books sold. As I said, more than 90 books. She's a USA Today bestseller. And she writes across so many different genres. So rom-coms, like really funny rom-coms, sports romance. She's done a lot of different kinds of sports as well in her sports romance. She writes for Harlequin Mills and Boone. She writes medical romances. She's also a registered nurse. And she does rural romance and small town kind of Western romance. So that's quite a big range of stuff. And most of them are very, very spicy.
Yeah. I was gonna say a lot of stuff, a lot of sex.
A lot of sex, a lot of thought about how she represents sex. So,
Yes.
in order to save some airtime, because I think we're going to be talking to Amy quite a lot, we're just going to invite Amy in and say, welcome, Amy Andrews. Welcome, Amy Andrews. And thanks for joining us to talk about sex.
Thank you for having me. I'm always up for talking about a little bit of sex.
Yeah. And we're going to celebrate you too, because 3 books in a very short amount of time, like over a few months. We've got Engaged Apparently, Wild and Wanted, which has just come out, and The Forbidden Nurse Next Door. Is that it with Harlequin Medical?
That came out. Yes.
Yeah,
That's
I think
right. Yeah, I
it's
forgot about that one.
all in
Yeah.
this little window of time.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy publishing year. I've got a couple more coming out after this as well. So
Ah, all in
yeah,
Oh my
2026.
gosh.
all in 2026. It's a big
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Which
There's an
beg
opening question. How do you do
How do
all
you
of
do
that?
that? Well, I've got a couple that I've got some backlists that are being re-released with Boltwood, so they're
Nice.
coming out because there's actually 2 more books that have come out this year that you didn't mention, but they're my re-release medicals as front list now. So that was a lot of like re-editing and that kind of thing, but they're all, back from my returned Harlequin titles. And I've got my Ruro coming out, and then I've got another like retitle medical as well. So it's just a bit of a juggle, really. I don't know how I do it half the time.
No.
I'm pretty much always behind my deadlines these days. So particularly as I travel overseas a little bit now as well. And my editors just, keep probably pulling their hair out behind the scenes, but I just kind of I'm a much slower writer now than I used to be as well, so that doesn't really help. But it is what it is. You just got to work with it. So,
But
Mm.
when you say slower, so some of those are backlists, but how many books would you average a year writing? Like,
I'm running for, I guess, 3 to
yeah.
4 a year, I suppose. Yeah.
That doesn't seem slow to me.
No.
Well, I probably would have written 3 to 4 a lot quicker, or done like 4 to 6, I suppose, in previous years, and now it's
Yeah.
like 3 to 4, and sort of a lot slower. For me, I mean, I know that I'm probably faster than a lot of writers, but certainly some writers I know can write much faster as well. So I guess I'm kind of middle of the road.
Yeah.
Mm.
I still
There is
think
a
it's
big
pretty
spectrum.
impressive. I think the spectrum of people, like, you and some others I know who write that much is actually quite a small part of the iceberg. It like fills me with awe when
But
it just fills me with awe, Amy. Which begs the question I'm curious about when you're writing that much. That's a lot of sex scenes to write. And
yes, it
I
is.
I have only just finished my 16th book, and I'm still fighting this problem of like, I think it happens like that in other books. Like I think I have the same play by play. And
Sure.
I'm like, really, I think we ought to mix up the moves a bit. Do you ever find that you have a kind of blocking that just naturally happens that you then have to stop and go, okay, I better mix this up?
I suppose probably if somebody did a bit of um a deep dive into my sex scenes, good Lord, that would be something, wouldn't it?
There's a sentence.
We could have rocked up to this interview with statistics.
I'm sure there would be like quite similar, I suppose, I guess there's only sort of a certain amount of ways you can kind of do it really, isn't there? Generally speaking. But I think because I think because the characters are different, it makes every sex scene, there's always an extra, that's what makes it different, is that the character's different and what's in their heads are different and their conflicts are different. So that kind of, a good sex scene, as I always say, should be about, it's an emotional scene. It's not really a physical scene. So all those things give nuance to the very mechanical act, I guess, in lots of ways.
I was wondering, like, what kinds of like do you get feedback from readers on your sex scenes? And have you noticed there's like, I don't know, specific things that resonate with people or specific things that don't like, and has your approach to writing sex scenes then changed over your career?
Not really. Even with writing my for Harlequin, I still feel like I've written the same kind of level of sex scenes like throughout all of my books. The language has certainly differed, and I can't drop an F-bomb in a Harlequin novel. Although I did get my first F-bomb through in this book that's just come out, so I'm super proud about that. I don't think they know that, but anyway, it's in there. So I guess that's kind of different. Now I've completely forgotten the question because I got completely
about your F-bomb.
sidetracked
Yeah,
on my
you're just so
F-bomb.
proud.
It was around
I sort of snuck two questions into one, which was what kinds of reader response, I suppose, do you get? And then
Yeah.
also, has your approach changed? Yeah.
So my approach hasn't really changed. No, that's that's the first lot. And then the first question. The second question is, I don't know if I've ever had anybody say to me, "Oh, that XYZ sort of sex scene in whatever book was really hot." I get a lot of like messages and a lot of chat with people that talk about how my books are hot and how they really enjoy the sex scenes, and that's sort of, I guess, something that I've become kind of known for, because I do tend to I tend to write long sex scenes as well, and that hasn't changed. I think probably actually I probably write longer sex scenes now than I probably used to, especially the first one. To me, the first one is the most important one that you can write between your couple, because that's the one where after that nothing can ever be the same ever again. So I don't want to, and I feel like if I've led my reader to that point and gotten to that point, I don't want to I don't want to just so, and then they had sex and shut the door kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think they want the payoff. I want the payoff as a reader, and also because there's so much emotional content and conflict going on in those kind of scenes anyway, the push and pull. I don't want to ever skimp on, any of that stuff at all. So I've never had anybody specifically request anything, that's for sure.
Maybe that's for the best.
But I'm up for any kind of suggestions. I think I had somebody, I went through a phase where, and I didn't know this, that I was using food quite a bit in sex scenes because one of my readers kept pointing it out. And then she was like, I'm like, I don't know what, she's like, what fruit do you reckon you couldn't put on? What do you want me to put? What do you want me to put in? And she challenged me to put a mango in, so I put a mango in one sex scene for her. So I didn't insert it anywhere, just so you know. But yeah,
just added to the general pleasure.
exactly.
I think he said something. I mean, I think people who are not in the romance community don't always think about sex scenes the way romance writers think about sex scenes, that idea of it being an emotional arc.
Yeah.
And I was thinking as you were talking about how that it really is the key between erotica and romance is that focus on the emotional. And that's why the story doesn't end when they have sex the first
Yes.
time. Like you're kind of setting up all these conflicts and various things that we really want to see pay off. And also the way couples negotiate their relationship with each other through sex, which I think I would love to hear you talk about because I think romance does that in a really interesting way, that it's those sites of kind of intimacy that allow you to have your conflict and allow you to kind of get to know each other and be vulnerable. And just thinking about how you think about that when you're writing.
Yeah, I feel that I don't really know. I guess because I'm a bit of a pantser. I'm not really ever thinking about those kind of big issues. I'm kind of going into the scene that's in front of me. And sometimes it can just be about the sex, depending on what number scene it is along the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And other times it can be a complete negotiation between the couple. I think that first sort of sex scene always is a bit of a negotiation as well, because there's been a lot for them, unless I've opened the book for reasons, with a sex scene, them to get that point, there's been like kind of a lot of maneuvering and negotiating, a lot of push and pull, and that's what I love. I love that kind of
Yeah.
2 steps forward, 1 step back. I love the longing, the build of all that sort of anticipation. I absolutely love that about reading sex scenes and about writing sex scenes. I don't know if I ever really thought much about the deeper political issues of, of, of sexual sort of politics between men and women, I suppose,
Yeah.
in my sex scenes. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I think that's, I don't know if I write, those kind of plot lines maybe as well. That it would be
Maybe.
more.
I think it always, like, in some ways, all romance novels, I think, are engaging with that, whether they're doing it like consciously or unconsciously, especially
Mhm.
because romance really, especially, being a genre majority written by and for women, really prioritizes and highlights female pleasure, which I feel like
Definitely.
in other media is just deemed so unimportant, if non-existent.
Yeah.
Mm,
I guess because we do it all the time, I don't see it as like
Yeah.
subversive,
yeah.
although I
Yeah.
suppose it probably is, or certainly has been. It just never occurs to me not to always be centering, and that's what I love about romance is it does center female pleasure, and it does center female, the female in the center, and it does say it's okay. It's okay to have sex. It's okay to want sex. It's okay to love sex. You don't have to. And if you have this wonderful, amazing sex, you don't have to then wear a scarlet letter around your neck, or
Mm.
throw yourself under a train or
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
like
That's
that.
right.
That it's okay. Yeah, I love that about
Yeah.
romance. And I always, I guess I just miss that's quite feminist, I suppose, really,
Yeah.
because
Mm.
I've just been in it for 20 odd years, and it's just natural to
Normal.
me. Yeah, it's normal.
Yeah.
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 Because I think the flip side of that, I think that's one thing that I was always drawn to was that centering of female pleasure. But the
Mm,
flip side is also it shows men being emotional and vulnerable, which is like they're kind of swapping spaces, right? Like we have a culture where we expect men to enjoy sex and
mm.
to not feel shame about it. And we expect women to be emotional, and it kind of allows both of them to do both.
That's actually a scene in Engaged, apparently, that stood out to me was when um I won't spoil too much, but the male love interest has a moment that he's very emotional and he cries, and then afterwards he's trying to save face and is like, oh, sorry about that. And
Mm.
then the heroine is like, why would you apologize? It's human and normal to feel those emotions, and like tells him off. And I kind of thought that was an interesting like microcosm of like repairing those like very patriarchal ideas around gender and emotion.
Yeah. He's a bit of softy.
Yeah.
Finn. And I mean that, I think that's the thing also. I think that romance novels get written off quite a lot, but they actually can deal with quite emotional, deeply emotional issues as
Mm.
well. And I think with sex, I think when you're literally stripping away the clothes of people, they're literally naked, so they're very vulnerable to each other in a way that they're not even when they're being really honest or in any other time.
Yeah.
And that really they can't hide from each other then. They can't hide physically from each other. They can't really hide emotion. They can still hide emotion from each other, of course, and they do because of conflict. But that also adds to the delicious push-pull inside inside their brains as they're doing this thing that they really want to do, but they know they shouldn't. And there's that, delicious kind of back and forth, and the longing and the I love the longing so much.
Yeah, me
Favorite
too.
things.
Same. You've been involved in Romance Writers Australia for a long time, and I believe you also co-founded the How to Write Academy. Is that right?
That's
So
right. Yep.
have you worked with many writers on how to write sex scenes, and what's the regular course of action for helping people, or what kind of issues do writers have in writing sex scenes?
So in the How to Write Love course that the How to Write Academy runs, there's a whole module on writing sex scenes, which I take. I'm in the
Perfect.
video. I've the expert on that as far as the How to Write Academy goes. So it's like, it's quite an involved module, and it's mostly like the thing that I've already spoken about and I'm always bang on about is that sex scenes are emotional scenes and not physical scenes, because I see so many new and emerging writers who just talk about the physical side, and it's often quite short scenes, and then it's like, and this goes there and that went there and then that happened and then it's all over, and it's just kind of leaves you cold, because you need to meet, like, kind of sink. You need to take time with those scenes and sink deeper into those scenes. So I explore all of the things that makes a sex scene really, really great. And I use particularly, and I love this, it's my favorite. I don't know if Amy's heard me already banging on about it, but I love Outlander season 1, episode 7, The Wedding. If you haven't seen it, you go to. I've watched it so many times. I watch it regularly. I watch it 3 or 4 times a year. But it is a perfect masterclass in how to write a female-centered gaze, sex scene. It's incredible. And so actually in that module, we actually look at that, and we have people go and watch that, and then we discuss it afterwards as well, because it's so incredibly well done. So it's about how do you bring the emotion into, into the sex. We talk about the language you can use and the bits and, all that kind of thing, but it's about how can you bring the emotional center into the scene. How can you, don't forget that it's not, we need to know what's going on in their heads as well as what's going on in their bodies. And we need to know, you need to have, like, I talk about having if there's a physical action, there should be a physical and a mental internal reaction as well. And they're not for every single one, otherwise it would bog a sex scene down completely. But you have to have that
The significant ones.
Yeah, well, exactly. You have to feel, if somebody touches you somewhere, then there has to be a physical and a sort of mental reaction to that, particularly when it's new, and particularly when you're in this sort of non-relationship relationship where you've still got conflict and nothing can really be, resolved as of yet. So lots of talking about, like, don't rush, bring in the emotion, and how you can do that without bogging things down, without things being too boring, without, that kind of stuff.
That's such good advice, because even in real life, that's how it is, right? Like, even if you're having a one night stand, it's not like your emotions shut off and I don't know, it's not like you're this perfectly confident person with great self-esteem all the time. Like, stuff is going on. So that means that, like, romance is very character driven, obviously. So you must do a lot of your work on character building.
I suppose, yes, definitely. And that's, even before we get to the whole sex scenes bit, on those modules, it's about get your characters right. Like, if people don't care about your characters, they're not going to care what kind of sex they're having. They don't care if they're having sex hanging from the chandelier or not. They will not care, because in a romance, they won't care if you're reading it for whatever, for titillation purposes or whatever it may be. But you have to get your characters right, and the motivations, particularly. I think I find reading lots of, new and emerging writers' works, is that motivation is something that will always pull me out of a story. If, that you're traveling along and a character's doing something and then something happens and then they go jump all the way over here to some kind of reaction, and you're like, whoa, like, where did that come from? But even in sex scenes, like, the a character can be made out to be one type, and then you get them to bed and they're like completely like
A
all over the
different
top over
person.
here, which is fine if you motivate it
Yeah.
properly. But if I've more than once been kind of pulled out of scenes and gone, "Wow, I did not." And it sometimes it can be that, like, what's it called, "Gentle on the streets, freak in the sheets" kind of thing. But even that has to be foreshadowed, I think, and like
there's a way to do it.
has to be motivated, so you're not kind of surprising the reader.
Yeah,
That's
like
definitely something that pulls me out of novels when I come across that exact feeling where it suddenly feels like you're not reading about the characters you've been reading about all book. Yeah.
Well, I think you go, what? As a reader, what
Yeah.
happened then? Why do they do that? Why do they say that? Why? That's not how that character's been set up to be. Um, and again, so that's all about, getting your characters right. It's all about, it's all about character. Romance novels are all about character. Yeah.
How do you insert character into a sex scene like that? Is it through that internal journey, or are there other ways that you make sure it feels like true to the characters you've made?
Yeah, I think it's definitely through the internal, the internal thinkings, but also it can be, um, if a character's quirky, there can be quirky stuff in sex scenes. I love a funny sex scene. I love a disastrous sex scene. Like all those things, they all bring in character. I often have heroines, particularly because, because I'm a woman, I suppose, who will be quite self-conscious about their body or have like some weird, tick or other. I had in the Ruro that's coming out, my heroine had a bad anxiety condition, and she's been on like medication for a while, and she can't actually finish. She can't get across the line, which is very common for a lot of those class of drugs. But she decides in the end, she just met this guy, they just had a one night stand, she's never going to see him ever again. So she just fakes it. So that's her bringing her, you can bring in everybody's kind of little, foibles into it as well to bring in character, to not make it just like a vanilla is the wrong word to use in that situation, but like a very generic kind of A goes into B and that feels nice and this tingles and everybody, there's fireworks kind of thing. I think each character will bring their own shit into a sex scene, and you can do that. But I mean, also I think people talk during sex, right? I mean, no, I'm not talking about dirty talk. Of course they can do dirty talk as well, but even in those kind of things, that you say, especially when you're trying to get consent as well, talking, having people talk, use dialogue in sex scenes is it's great. Yeah.
That's a nice segue. There's a bit, so the book we're looking at a bit this month, Catherine Angel, she's got this whole chapter on consent and about what happened. And this is a complicated topic. So first draft thinking, all four of us, like there's no pressure to have a polished thought. But she talks about how this pressure was immediately put on women when we started to talk about consent and sex to know their own mind, which when you get in these situations, you don't always, right? And I think your books definitely do this, and I've seen other romance books do this, where you kind of see that push and pull going on in the character of like, do I like him? Do I not like him? Do I want to do this? Maybe I don't want to do this. Like you see consent as a more complicated thing than I think people always think about with romance. Do you know, like I think sometimes there's this sense that we get swept off our feet, and sometimes there's this sense that we should go, yes, I want to have sex right now.
Yeah.
But what you're describing in the messiness is an ability to kind of play out how complicated that idea of consent is.
Yeah. And how it can shift and change within, one scene. It can, just because you say yes at the beginning doesn't mean, I wrote years ago, I wrote a scene where the heroine really hadn't had sex for a long time. It was a long time ago. I can't remember the name of the book or anything. But she was really keen to do it, but she was a doctor. She got to the door and she was nervous, and she said, "Oh, have you got condoms?" And he was like, "Oh shit." I'm like, yeah. So he went and got it. She's like, I need you to get me the box and bring it to me because I've got to check the expiry dates. This is all just her stalling. She literally has like checked the expiry dates and the condoms. And he's like, we don't have to do this, like, because he's thinking she actually doesn't really want to do this, and I've got this hurt. Like, she's just said yes, and now it's weird and awkward. But again, it was funny. Like, it was a funny. Actually, that's not true. I wrote it that way, and that made me take it out. That's
I would love to read that book.
Yeah. I mean, that they did go on and have sex, but it was like I wanted, yeah, it was a little kind of funny bit where she was just like, no, I have to check the expiry dates first because this condoms can break and you haven't had sex for a while, and but they actually had to take that bit out because they were like, that's too funny. Like they didn't say it's too funny, but it's like, well, it kind of it interrupts the flow of the scene. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Well,
kind of the point.
you have to save it for a different book.
Yeah.
So I
where it would
wrote
be
it, but I didn't. It
appropriate.
didn't get into the book. It's on the cutting room floor. But yeah, it's always there. Yeah.
I suppose that would be part of the process is just trialing things and then maybe sometimes you just have to wait until like your team reads things and gets back to you because it's like with any aspect of writing, you just kind of stop seeing what you're doing at a certain point. Like it's really hard to be clear on what you've written sometimes or
Yeah.
what kind of impact it will have on people.
Yeah. I don't really have a beta team or anything. I just literally
Mm,
work with my editor now. So I mean, they usually tell you pretty bluntly
yeah.
if they don't. But I have to say, apart from that, that little funny back and forth with condom thing, it's usually those things they talk about. They don't generally talk about, he went a bit too far with that blowjob or whatever.
Um,
Sounds like a challenge for you.
Challenge accepted.
I was going to ask about that, like towing that line between writing consent into a scene or write and having it jump the reader out of a scene. I know some people feel that like, oh, if you're writing in like consent check-ins, then it feels like it's taking you out of the like sexy moment. But then I've also heard other writers say that, the checking in on the consent is part of what makes the moment so sexy. Like,
Mm.
yeah, how do you balance that line?
I think it is actually really hard, and I think that's changed from when I first started writing to now. I've always written what I felt was implied consent. I feel like if you're both there, you're both sharing it's close off, there is an implied consent. But more and more editors are wanting it, and readers are wanting explicit consent. Talking about, can I do this? Are you okay with that? And I think that is it can be clunky and tricky, I suppose. And it is something that I find myself oftentimes walking over eggshells over uh, how to do it without like I find the same thing with the condom. It's like, I used the beginning I was like, I wish we could just have a disclaimer at the front of all our books that says unless otherwise stated in this book, safe sex is always practice or something like that. Because it's like, oh no, you've got to interrupt with the condom, but I'm so used to doing it now. Like I'm like, just don't even half the time I don't even like describe it being put on. It's just like, and then he put on the condom, or then she put on the condom, or then he opened the silver packet or whatever, and I don't even like go there. So there are ways you can kind of get around it. I did a workshop in Melbourne a few years ago during COVID for the Victorian Writer Centre, and I guess it must have been about sex. We're talking about, I guess we're talking about consent, and I was saying that I don't think it's necessary that in a sex scene that you need to check into every single step of the way. And I had quite a younger sort of participation. People that there were like probably in their 20s, and a few of them were like, well, actually, yeah, no, you really should do that. And I was like, oh, okay. So I think that's the difference. I think expectations have really changed, and you just have to meet that. And it's going to be easier in some scenes and in others. And I'm finding it easier and easier to do, a bit like the condom now. It's sort of more of a, can I touch you? Is it okay if I do this? Without belaboring. I think anything belabored
Yeah.
is, and I think I read some often that are a bit belabored, and it feels like it's done as a checkpoint rather than, a natural kind of. I mean, I think Heated Rivalry did that so well, right?
Yeah.
In the television series. I mean, the books as well, but like, most people know the television series, so they did that sort of really, really well.
And a way they did it in a way that kept it hot, right? Like that
Totally,
made it hot. Um, because I mean, that's what Catherine Age was talking about is this expectation that consent will mean dropping into a kind of cognitive, like a thinking space when actually
Yeah,
sometimes you're in 100% feeling space.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but then I wonder if being in the character's point of view helps a lot too. Like if you're in her body and you're
Yes.
getting her reactions, that implied consent is pretty strong.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I think sometimes it helps to switch point of view, yeah, of the person who's the receiver and not the giver, if you know that's the wrong way of putting it. But um and then they're giving consent because you're in their head.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think point of view can be used really effectively with consent for sure. Yeah.
Because you do often
Mm.
get thoughts that are yes, like they may not be explicitly stated, but in the narrative, you can, I can think of so many books where they're just like, yes, yes, don't stop. But in
Yes.
thought,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. And body language is always a really important part of consent as well. And I find like outside of the reading space, like just in conversations around consent, people sometimes focus so much on the verbalized stuff that it's like they don't even have to worry anymore about actually paying attention to physical cues when sometimes
Mm.
that's more important than what someone is saying is paying attention to them in the moment.
Yeah, that's very true. And you're right, it's another form of implicit consent. Like if you touch and then it's not rebuffed or, moved away
Mm,
from, or then that's, you can go further, but, characters, heroes, heroines who pay attention to those cues, um, is that's kind of super sexy as well, right? And
yeah.
I think particularly that first time when you're just like you're naked together and it's new and it's weird and sex is weird,
it
really. I
is.
mean, it's
Yeah.
got a great payoff, but it's kind of awkward and weird and fumbly, and which is why it's great to always write that kind of, it's for it not to be, all kind of, hearts and flowers and exploding,
Yeah.
fireworks, because, you want it to get there, but it's nice to have it a little bit sort of, not so not so easily earned.
Yeah.
Mm.
This
Yeah.
this is a bit of a first draft thought, and it's probably one that falls apart under scrutiny. But is there a
Okay.
level of implied consent in the genre as well? Like if someone's reading, especially a rom-com, you're not expecting the sex scenes between the like main like characters whose romance you're reading to be like violent or unpleasant or step over a line. And there's a level there where that's part of that contract with the reader is that they're not going to be like upset by that sexual content.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
I suppose in some other genres that might be darker or might not necessarily be or might not be romances, then that question is more like you don't know where this scene is going to go. Whereas in a romance, you kind of know that your characters are going to like what's about to happen.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think that's true. I think that's really true. It is. And I guess that again, that was the whole, I feel like I've always written implied consent because you're already, yeah, kind of in that situation anyway. But yeah, I feel like more and more people are wanting it to be, more
Mm.
explicit. So just because two people are hot for each other and about to do it doesn't necessarily mean that I guess consent can be given and that people want that sort of stated. And it is tricky. And it's just one of those things you've got to, you know, tackle.
Negotiate.
What about you, Amy? Do you feel that when you're
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this because we've been talking a lot about dark romance lately too, and that's a
Mm,
whole different beast, right? Because
mm,
then you're entering a contract where it is going to be dubious, and that's what you're looking for is
yeah.
that dubious consent. I probably do think about it. The one most fun I think I had was actually in a Western years ago where the hero was a virgin and he
Mm,
was just so anxious about, does she want this? Am I doing this right? Am I touching her right? Is this so he was like, again, it was character driven, right? That he's
yeah.
constantly checking in because he's like, I'm doing this wrong. I know I'm doing this wrong. Is this okay? Can I do this?
Yeah. Yeah. You mean you can let me do that?
Yeah,
Yay.
this is amazing.
I can do that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think you're right. Like, but I like humor in sex. I really,
Yeah.
really enjoy when it's silly, a little bit silly. And then
Mm.
I have a lot of the word yes constantly. Like you
Mm,
can just have the heroine yelling it out and that's consent. He
Yeah,
doesn't have
that's true.
he does not have to ask a question. She could just be saying yes, do that.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
right.
Mm.
So that's right. It can be, it can be easily done. So yeah, don't
Yeah.
belabor it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other question I have though is around so in my Amy Matthews books, I'm not allowed to Yeah, show the penis, really. That's where it cuts to black. Basically, we can have some fooling around, and then when the penis makes an appearance, we have to cut.
Right.
Peyton was teasing me the other day because we were talking about how far can you go, and there's like the shape of him through his jeans. If you go that far. But then I was thinking about all when we came up, like all the different romance terms, like his manhood, his throbbing
Mhm.
manhood, and
Mhm.
all the different terms. What and thinking about how you said language has changed, I feel like sex scenes have changed a lot. They're a lot more explicit than they used to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm very thankful that I was writing romance beyond the throbbing manhood kind of, And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, women like that, those sort of terms were used because no one could
yeah.
say penis or dick
Mm.
or cock
Cock,
or,
yeah,
anything like that, right?
yeah,
So they had to come up with more creative sort of euphemisms, for the male member.
yeah.
Um, and I'm just
Sounds
pleased
like a
that.
member of parliament. That's what all I ever thought of. It's an MP.
Well, there are a lot of cocks in Parliament, so I suppose that's true. Um,
So wait, what
I
does
and
the P stand
interestingly,
for, Kath?
Minister of
interestingly,
Peace.
I quite like to use the term penis, right?
Yeah.
Because it is what it is. But obviously, if you're doing a big long sex scene, you can't just keep saying penis, 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 or cock, 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 cock. You've got to kind of like switch it up a little bit, right? And I know that when I first started to because I obviously couldn't use penis, or could I use penis with Harlequin? I can't really remember, but sort of dick or cock, definitely not. So it was more about, you're right, the shadow of through his genes, that sort of thing, rather than
Yeah.
actually explicitly sort
Yeah.
of.
Shaft. Shaft was the other one that came up in historicals a lot.
Fine
Shaft.
shaft, actually. I used to not like cock at all.
Yeah.
It sounds like people are coming to me now and be
I
like,
came I
really?
came around to it. I did come around to cock.
But I
That will
have
be the title of the episode.
Just
Amy
a
does not like
rooster.
cock. But I have come around to it. I really, really liked dick. Like,
Yeah.
very bad. I like that was a term I would use if I was going to use any
Yeah.
kind of, and what would normally be a guy thinking about his dick,
Yeah.
realistically. And because I think men and women also can think about, have different thoughts about, what those parts are called as well. And then I was reading so much, so much, so much in a lot of contemporary romance, particularly American contemporary romance by US authors. I was like, hey, it looks like I'm going to have to embrace the cock. So now I use that quite a bit
Yeah.
as well.
So
Mm.
I've always struggled with what
Oh.
you call the lady parts.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
ask that too, because there's a lot of her center, and I'm like, we
Yeah.
talked about this last year when we also did like a smut in books month.
Yeah.
But yeah, the center never really hit, or just like often it'll just be like her. I don't know. Like the shape of
Yeah.
him.
Jane
They make it.
Jean Ale used to talk about her petals.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
Like,
I use Senna a bit, I have to say, because it kind of, I guess is entrance. Like I've not used. Have I used cunt? I don't think I've used cunt.
I don't think I could get
Um,
away with it. I don't think anyone would let me get that one through.
well, I don't. I mean, it's not that I, object to it at all. I'm, whatever. It doesn't offend me when I read it. I just don't know that I would tend to talk about lips, folds, like things that are
Because
more.
vagina is not a sexy word.
Vagina
Maybe
isn't sexy. I mean, I would use vagina as well, but probably in the bit where they're like kind of, really.
really go for
And
it.
again, you can't use, if you're having a really long section, you can't use vagina, 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 vagina all the
Yeah.
time either, right? I will use labia, but I tend to use those more clinical terms probably a little bit more sparsely, and probably more like if women are talking about and talking in a conversation about, they probably, would say, I've used pussy. Sometimes probably
Yeah.
but probably he's probably thinking more about as that than she is. Maybe I really feel like, the language is gendered in that.
Yeah.
Or certainly has been anyway. I think it's getting less and less so. It's becoming more and more, people are using, the C word and P word like much more interchangeably, and men and women. But yeah, I think it's tricky. It's amazing what you can do without actually saying anything at all.
Yeah.
We're just talking like down there, or I use erection a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a way to get away with it. I do like shaft. To
Yep.
be fair,
It's probably the best of the lot.
Yeah. Better than MP. All this talk
this
of
point,
anatomy,
anything.
though. Oh.
Sorry, I was just going to say, at this point, every sentence is the title of the episode.
Yeah.
I actually wrote a blog once called The Mighty Wang, He of the Mighty Wang. I think of the Mighty Wang. I must get it up and send it to you about how I'm an unashamed fan of the Mighty Wang. Like, I kind of feel like, do we do our readers a disservice? Because of course men never think about this, but women always think about it, I suppose. Like, do we do our readers a disservice by having our heroes always be so well endowed?
Yeah.
So two things with that. I asked my sister, who's like really a fantastically feminist, wonderful, wonderful person. I'm like, do you think that's wrong? Like, am I doing my readers a disservice by like always, she's like, no. It's like, why? And it's not real life. Like, might as well give it's a fantasy in lots of ways. Why not make them incredibly well endowed and make it be the best kind of sex I've ever had? And I was like, okay, well, if she's all right with it, then I'm all right with it as well. She's kind of my yardstick as far as that sort of goes. Also, as from a purely like, now, I'm going to put my nursing hat on here, my ex-nursing hat. I tend to write heroes who are big and tall and broad. Now, anatomically, the body is quite anatomical. And generally speaking, what a man anatomically looks like, he will have an appropriate, like, a penis that is like anatomically kind of,
Sized, like properly sized.
yeah, but
In
it's like,
proportion.
thank you, it's in proportion.
Proportionate.
That's right. Now, of course, we all know men who are massive, who have very small hands, and we know and guys with short who have very big feet. So that obviously is not the same for everyone, but because I tend to write quite tall guys, I feel like it's not out of the realms of possibility that they do have decent sized appendages and know exactly what to do with them. And the blog that I wrote talks about how I'm not backing down for that. It sort of says, a penis should not be able to be that wonderful that it's like it solves third world debt or the demineralizes the DMZ, nothing like that. But it should actually give the heroine all the things that or the other person.
You said something there that struck me too around that he should know what to do with it. That actually what these heroes are is this fantasy of a man who knows the heroine's body. He actually knows his way around.
Yes, exactly. He knows to do it, or he is okay with taking direction. That's fine too. It's like, I feel like that's one of those kind of those scenes where things are just not working out properly.
Yeah.
If he's gonna get insulted and like storm off because he can't take a little bit of like to the left, for God's sake, to the left, then
that is not a hero, guys. That is not a hero.
Exactly.
This feels like it all comes back to what you were saying about character as well. Like he's sexy not just because of like how big he is, but because of his like attitude, his approach, his like respect for like not just respect for women, but the fact that he's thinking about his partner's pleasure and that it's a priority to him is part of what makes him sexy.
Yeah, the book is centering her pleasure, and he's centering her pleasure as well. He or she, I've written one male book, so I keep, I tend, because I've mostly written male female, I tend to think of it like that. But yes, as we know in romance, there are many splendid and wonderful different sort of joinings of
I think
people.
that's applicable across gender lines, like the appeal of a partner who's making your pleasure their priority.
Yeah, definitely.
That would work in all kinds of relationships in romance.
Definitely. Yeah.
I had a question for you, Brown. When you started writing, were you always out and proud about being a romance writer, or did you get any weird reactions from people? Or
yes and no. Some people knew, because I was a nurse back when I was first published, and was for 15 years after that. And it wasn't so much about being out and proud. It was about, when you're out at a party somewhere and you're talking, people say, what do you do? And you say, oh, I'm a writer. And then most people will just go, oh, that's nice. But then some people go, oh, what do you write? And then you go, oh, then you have to decide whether do you want to have a conversation with this person about romance? Who are they going to judge you? Are they going to, or can you even be bothered? And that's why it was great to be a nurse, because I would just say I was a nurse, because people
Yeah.
don't understand what a writer is or what a writer does. And then I just can't be asked having a 2-minute conversation with some, bozo who's gonna like go romance novels and like,
Smart, basically.
yeah, do all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. So I was just particular probably about, who I told outside of my, obviously my friendship group, and sort of knew. And as more as my career went along, more and more people sort of did know. But I did tend to be picky and choosy about who I told outside of that, just because it's just so,
Tiresome.
life's too short.
Yeah.
So tiresome. It's so tiresome. And usually it's at a function or something like that, and you want to have a good time. You don't want to spend the entire time angry, which
Yeah.
is pretty much what
Yeah.
always makes me angry.
Because I've
So
always been curious how much it's about the sex and how much it's about girls feeling emotions around love, like whether how much it's the emotional content and how much it's the sexual content. Because feels like you see it now with romanticy, just this incredible social judgment about smut, about
yeah,
women, and it's not just smut, right? Like it's not pornography. It has a kind of narrative and it has craft, and there's some great writing happening in the genre, and it's about emotions and our place in the world and all of these really, and some of the great literature is romance. So
yeah.
I've always been curious, like whether you had thoughts about how much the sex plays into why we're denigrated.
Oh, I'm sure it's a lot to do with it, because that's easy, right? It's easy to go, oh, that's just girl stuff, and it's all just sex. Therefore, it's easy. It's really easy to denigrate it. Absolutely, because like mostly those people don't. They're not even. It's that it is exhausting to have to explain all the time that actually it's actually an emotional
Mm.
story between two people falling in love, right? Because I think that's the thing in romance. If I'm particularly thinking maybe category romance here, literally the story is just those two people, falling in,
Mm,
in love. It's just like there's not a whole lot of extraneous plot, and um, and people are quite denigrating that, because that's just what it's about. But it's like, well, it's not just about that. It's just the story is being very focusing on on this particular point of these people's life. They had a whole life before that, and they're gonna have a whole life hopefully together after
Yeah.
that. It's not, but these stories are literally just about these two people falling in love. So of course it's very centered in on that moment. And because we're writing modern novels, they are generally
mm,
people are going to be having sex in them, right? So
Mm.
of course that's going to be detailed as well, depending on kind of what end of the spectrum you're reading. I think it's just cheap and easy for people to dismiss it. I mean,
mm.
I don't think it helps that we also use it as to kind of denigrate ourselves in a very have a bit of fun with ourselves about you know often say, I'm reading smart, or I'm writing some smart today, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
We tend to use it ourselves as a bit of I guess, almost like a defense mechanism, because it's easy and it's shorthand.
Mm.
But it's a bit like the thing, we can say it because
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
yeah.
we write
Because
it,
we know. Yeah, we know.
exactly.
There
But
are,
you on the outside you can't say that. We can say it because
yeah.
we own it and we know, but you don't get to say it because you're using it to denigrate, whereas we're using it almost like women have reclaimed cunt right to use. It's a bit like
Yeah,
that. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
like,
yeah. I can say that. You can't say that. But it's
Yeah.
funny
exactly.
because I've been teaching this romance and horror course for the last, forever, 10 years. And it's funny that you set that challenge for students. You have to write a short story about two people and just about their relationship to each other. And you watch them go through the journey of A, this is really fun, but B, this is really hard. Like you really
Mm.
have to get your characters right for it to work.
Yeah.
Mm, mm.
I find it frustrating when the judgment comes from other women, especially who don't
Yeah,
read romance. That's
yeah,
quite frustrating because it's not like you're not allowed to criticize romance or certain aspects of it, certain books, whatever. But when people just wholesale denigrate the entire genre, and when that's coming from women, it's really frustrating that they can't see that that wholesale denigration is internalized misogyny. There's really no
Yeah.
other reason for it. Like you're clearly not reading it, or you read one that you didn't like and then you gave up, or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
I think a lot of it is to do with, I think it's an intellectual snobbishness.
yeah.
It's like the way that it's like I'm going to judge, I read so much. I only read, the National Geographics and, some boring literary tome that took me, 5 years to read and took the writer 10 years to write, because I'm so much smarter than you. To me, it's a real, like, I
Yeah.
think that's from men, but also from women. It's like, oh, well, yes, you're only reading that because you're not smart enough to read the big, more important books, kind of thing. They don't realize that it's a choice, and a very, very happy choice that many, 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 many of us make. So I think a lot of that is about, just snobbishness and intellectualism, a way to put other people down, and to make, well, the way to make you look smarter, because you're
Yeah.
not reading such accessible, amazing, emotionally satisfying, uplifting, or any genre fiction really.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think can come into that sort of criticism.
Yeah, we've
And
had
it's such a
experiences where we've presented at academic conferences on romance and no one's come to our panel. Like that kind of intellectual
I
snobbery is so
know.
it's so real, Amy.
Yeah.
it's such a narrow perspective as well. I mean, of course, I think that because I'm, amongst a cohort of other romance like academic researchers, but
Mm.
you don't have to read romances from like an intellectual point of view. But
Yeah.
that's not to say that there's nothing intellectually interesting happening in that genre. That's kind of a
Mm.
wild claim to make.
Mm.
Yeah. I also
I feel like I was destined to write romance, because I like all of my life from like quite little, I have loved country music. Back when it was way less cool to like country music as it is now, right? And that's another entire genre of music that people just say,
yeah,
oh,
they
country
do look
music's
down on it.
terrible. They don't
Yeah.
listen to it, they don't know anything about it, but they just literally like pan the entire genre of music
Hmm.
because they've heard, one yodely horrible song back in 1967.
Yeah.
Same with romance, oh, I read a Mills, like a 1976 Mills and Boone, and it was terrible, and therefore the whole genre is terrible.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I also do, I've often thought too, there's something about it when you talk about centering women's pleasure, the way women are consumed in media, it's a certain kind of woman, right? And I'm just going to be crass, it's a fuckable object. And
Yeah.
one thing that's really subversive about romance that I think upsets people is the unfuckable objects are sexual. Is women that they don't want to consume as
Mm.
sex objects having a sex life and having a sexuality and being voracious about it is actually terrifying to people, I think.
Yeah.
Women of all ages, all shapes, all sizes, all races, all classes, that's actually quite terrifying rather than narrowing them down to a kind of, I don't know, Sydney Sweeney type.
Mm.
Yeah. I think, yeah, maybe you're right. It's like, I just want to go, just
Let
let
us
us have,
be.
like, we're not saying you should read them, or that you like, just let us be. Like, we're on a good thing here. And, if you could probably do with a romance novel or two, but whatever, you do you. Just like let us be. It's that whole thing. It's like, oh well, if young girls are reading romance novels, then they're going to think that their prince will come one day in a white horse and all that kind of thing. So,
How dare they? How dare they want to be
I
happy?
know.
well, I know, right? But it's that thing. It's like, well, yeah, but like women might get silly ideas about stuff like, but I'm not reading a crime novel, and I'm not going to go out and become some mad murdering, psychopath
Oh my
either, right?
God.
It's just it's lazy, and it's dumb, and it's just so,
Yeah.
and I used to get me so cranky and angry and fired up, and now I just think, do I have to waste 5 minutes of my life explaining to this person I'm never going to meet ever again? And I just don't.
Yeah, that's such a good point because, like, God forbid, women want read romances and then want loving relationships.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
With a supportive
So
partner.
dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. That's those dangerous women, I tell you. We're giving them ideas about happiness, God forbid.
As a last question, I was wondering if you had any authors that you found inspirational for writing sex. Well, who were the authors you read that you were like, oh, that's the way to do it?
I'm quite kind of old school, so I really Like I like I was first reading romance. I was reading like a lot of the Harlequin, Mills and Boone, Emma Darcy's,
Yeah.
and now of course my brain will fail me. That kind of ilk of writer who were writing really hot sex. I don't think I completely understood because I was reading
Yeah.
around like 11 and 12. But I knew something was feeling good somewhere, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so so I read a lot of that. So there's, and like the Jean Auel books, there was a lot of hot sex
Yes,
in
yeah,
those books. They
yeah,
were really great.
yeah.
But I also love the I really kind of changed corner when I started reading Jennifer Crusie, and I started reading a lot of that kind of ilk of book. And I love Crusie's books because she does bad sex so well.
Yeah.
Like horrible, everything goes wrong. Someone gets punched in the face, and someone's watch gets caught in someone's hair, and then someone can't come. And like when I started reading more of that sort of that ilk of romance, I realized then that actually sex could actually be, you can have fun sex and it can be different,
Yeah.
and it can be naughty, and it can be playful. And it was sort of, I think the sort of old school Mills and Bourne was very like,
Yeah.
down the line, down to business kind of thing. Whereas this kind of felt more flirty and fun and playful.
I was
And so,
so sad I joined RWA after Jennifer Crusie came to conference because
oh,
every year, the first few years I went, everyone was like, I should have been here for the Jennifer Crusie year.
I actually got to be her chauffeur kind of person for that
Oh,
event, and it was so it's like all my dreams have come true. I just love it
yeah.
so
I
much.
think Welcome to Temptation is like one of the best. That book blew me away.
Yeah, I mean I have all of them. Every single one of them. I have them all signed. I took them all to conference. I literally just like eked them out like, one every few hours. I'd give another one to sign.
Books are coming out later in the year. We talked a bit about that 3 have come out so
Yeah,
far.
so you've
Yeah.
had
At
Mention that
least.
there's more
you've
coming.
had a rom-com, a western, and an H&B medical so far.
Yeah, so I've got the second Western will be coming out the second one to the Wild and What is the one that came out yesterday, and the second one is
I was just looking at the cover.
I will get back to you about what the
Yeah,
actual
yeah.
title is.
Do you have a playlist?
I think it's Rough and Ready. Is it Rough and Ready? Maybe it's Rough and Ready. That might be the third one. Sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's okay. Too many books, Amy.
Too many books.
Do you have a country western playlist you were listening to while you did it that you're sharing?
No, actually, but Wild and Wanted, I just listened to one song on repeat over and over and over and over again. And it's the Red Clay Strays
Okay.
singing Wondering Why. And the live AF version I love the best.
Okay.
And it's like that whole song just sparked the entire plot and I don't really make playlists because I can't listen to music and write. So I have made them in the past, but I don't tend to listen to them as I'm doing it.
I've just had a quick check of your website, and the sequel to Wild and Wanted is Tough and Tamed.
Tough and Tamed.
Oh, nice title.
Rough and Ready is coming out in 2027, apparently.
Yes, that's right.
Ooh.
And then in September, Where the Waddles Bloom, my Ruro is coming out. So yeah, and there is another medical coming out, like a retitled medical.
I feel like we have to have you back on because I want to talk to you also about the difference between like a Western and a Ruro and like what the differences are, but we are out of time to do it today.
Well, I'm up for that.
We might have to set a Ruro for a book of the month, I think, and then we can get back on.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Well,
Plan.
thank you for joining us. That was so much fun. We could literally talk to you more and more and more. I've still got more questions about sex.
Yeah, there's actually quite a lot that we didn't get around. We'll definitely
So
have to have you
many.
back.
Do a part 2.
Part 2. The second coming.
So now we have a title for the next
Yeah.
You do. Yeah, it's very punny. I love it. I love it so much.
Thank you, Amy. Have a lovely time, and we'll see
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you in August in Darwin.
Definitely. I'll be there always.
Yeah,
Always.
we're all there.
Yay.
Thank you.
See you then.
Thank you.
Bye.
See
Bye.
ya.
Bye.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I think we didn't scratch the surface. I think there are some questions there I wish I'd asked, but I got too caught up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, everything she said, I just wanted to dig into even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny because we talk about sex and romance a lot, but there's everything I say sounds like a bad entendre now. But
Yeah, you can't stop hearing it.
I feel like you could drill into any one of those points and you could talk about a whole season on each one of them, like how you represent consent, how you even talk about genitalia. I think we really struggle to talk about the female anatomy too and the non-male anatomy. I think the male body gets kind of described quite specifically. And
Mm.
the female body, weirdly, for being the focus of of all media attention, is really hard to describe.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I was really, yeah, really interested in everything she was saying about character and how that shapes just every single part of, writing sex scenes. I think that's something that, as we talked about, people tend to forget in romance that they separate the sex scenes from their context as a love existing within a love story and existing with,
Yeah.
Yeah.
characters having emotional arcs.
And
And
humor that you can
that's,
read rom-coms and they're really funny, and
yes.
then they get to the sex scene, it's suddenly really serious. It's just like it
Yeah.
should just stay funny. Like
And
people are funny.
that's when I kind of skip over those scenes because I'm like, it doesn't actually feel like an integrated part of the story anymore. It just feels like it was thrown in there because it doesn't feel important enough for me to read it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that was amazing. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you're all reading. What's it called again? I keep calling it Minotaur
Morning
Milking Farm,
Glory.
Morning Glory Milking Farm, and I keep calling
Morning
it
Glory
Minotaur
milking.
Milking Farm. Anyway, so get reading if you haven't started reading already. It is one of those books that just about everyone I know who reads it is like, oh, I kind of went into it thinking it's a joke, but it's actually quite well written. So I can't wait
Yeah.
to talk about it with everyone. Anyway, thanks for joining us. It's been really fun. So, Justina, Peyton, thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.